start here this and then we'll work our way down. Just briefly introduce yourself with like a name, so everybody here who might not know you will know who you are, and that's going to help me as we go. Yes, sir.
My name is Al Floor, and I'm incumbent.
My name is Larry Robinson. I'm not.
Mel Reese, and I'm not either.
David Westmoreland, incumbent.
Katie Lancey, incumbent.
Scott McBride, I'm not an incumbent.
Kyle, me neither.
Roy Smith, ditto.
All right. Well, we're going to keep this a little informal, so you're going to be called by your first name. No disrespect intended with that. I just can't write as fast as y'all were talking. And this go around, we're going to do things a little different. Instead of expecting all 8 of you to answer the same question, I will go, are we going to pull numbers, Stephen, to see who goes first?
Oh, yes, I just moved it out.
I see that.
I just forgot to hand out the number.
So while Stephen gets this out, the way we'll do this is that I will ask a question, whoever is first, and you will get to answer that question. If there's somebody up here who would like to add to that or rebut, if you'll just raise your hand, I'll acknowledge you and you'll have a 1 minute to do that. Okay? Who got number 1? That's a problem.
I have number 1. That's what happens when you have this
You did not do that.
Are you running?
No, I'm not.
Who has number 2? Okay. Mr. Roy, we'll start with you. The question for you is, how can the city incentivize new businesses, retail, industrial, or agricultural businesses to move to Ellijay?
Very simple. Invite them, encourage them, tax incentives to move here. I know of some that have asked for it and been denied in the past.
Okay, here. Speak up.
Okay. Tax incentives would be one way. Contact them, ask them what they need. Work with them as far as the regulations that can be worked around their particular business. But a lot of communities give a 5-year leeway on taxes to get them to move here, and then gradually increase the tax base up to where it should be.
Do you want to say something?
I would like to say something. I think what we have to drive is residential construction in the city, and that will drive business. And I think that is what's crux on this. I think that as residents of the greater Gilmer County, as we get older, we need to have different housing. And living in downtown in a walking area, I think that is the way that's going to drive the businesses that we need to support us in the future as we age in Gilmer County, and consequently drive our tax base.
All right. I'm going to skip around because I think going in line is a little boring. But, Ms. Kate,
Yes.
this question is for you. How would you help plan for a population increase?
Well, we've planned for it in a way because we've actually enlarged the footprint of the city of Ellijay. The city actually goes out to the 4-lane on both sides, north and south. And of course, you've always got to worry about infrastructure. And we are partners, we have representatives on the Ellijay Gilmer County Water and Sewer Authority. We'll need to work with them, and then the Department of Transportation as well, because we've got to keep the infrastructure of the roads up to par. The school systems, we don't really have a lot to do with those, but I think anytime you've got population growth, one reason that people come to a place is because they've got good schools, and we do have that. So as much support system as we can give to our schools as possible.
Mr. Al, you ready? All right. Your question is, how would you work with private commercial property owners to fill or sell vacant storefront locations?
Well, you know, I thought about this a lot in the last 2 years with the DDA. I like to see the DDA buy property. And we can, if the DDA has a property, they would be able to almost put the type business that we're looking for in that particular property. There are buildings for sale now. There will be buildings for sale in the future. But the DDA first has to get in a position, which I hope they do, has to be in a position where they can afford to buy those properties. And you might say kind of fine tune downtown Ellijay.
Yes, sir.
In a way, we've kind of done that with the boardwalk, downtown development authority, when we created that and put it in place. Gave the incentive for a lot of the property owners on the alley to dress up their buildings and stuff. So it was a planned thing. It worked.
Yes.
Bring up old history. Mayor Huff, years ago, some of y'all have never heard of, but he worked to get the, what we call housing projects in downtown and also on Corbin Hill for affordable homes for low income and elderly. He also got a grant at one point, or help discounted loans to help the facade of downtown on the square for the businesses, and they got very reasonable loans to be able to change the fronts of those buildings at that time.
When I came here 8 years ago, it was pretty bleak downtown. It was the beginning of the real economic depression for us. In the last 4 years, there's been I think if you're downtown, you can see a dramatic change in what's going on. The buildings now many of them have been spruced up. They've been filled. I thought we were going to lose the building that Trevor's was in. I mean, the bats were coming from that building into my store on a regular basis. I have to capture them and take them up to my house, which is wonderful. But seriously, there are stores downtown, and we need to impress upon those owners that they have an obligation to make repairs and to do what they can do to spruce them up. We're not going to get new merchants if we don't have a good place to put them.
Mr. Leonard, this question is for you. Would you take advantage of both state and federal grant opportunities?
Absolutely. Wouldn't turn any opportunity down for a grant. As was spoken earlier with mayors, it's something you always get a hold of. And you take advantage of it. If you want to be prosperous city, it's a must.
Mr. Scott, this question is yours.
All right.
What unique skills would your election add to the city's governance?
My professional background has been held together with one unifying core, and that is dealt in manufacturing, sales, and distribution of manufactured goods for construction. That lends itself to the point that I mentioned earlier. I think that our economic growth in this community is going to be driven by residential construction. I think we need to focus on that. And that will allow us to have the building and businesses come into our community. That I think that my professional career that I'm retired from will lend itself to being able to contribute to our governance in that way.
Ms. Patricia. What done to improve Harrison Park?
I have mixed feelings about all of that. I think, I'm not sure is the answer. Harrison Park needs to be brought into the city of Ellijay. As it stands right now, it seems to be a separate entity all in itself. It's restricted in what it can do, its uses, and it just seems to me that Harrison Park needs to be better defined as a park and as a part of our community. I first want to admit, I wasn't in on the development of Harrison Park, and so I don't fully understand it. It's something that obviously I need to better understand. But it needs to come in and be more available to the people. It's not used enough, and I don't know what the answer to that is. I think Mayor Hoyles put it well. Pavilions, restrooms, things that will draw people to the park, because I don't think there's enough there to draw them now.
Yes.
I do understand a little bit better. I was on the steering committee, gosh, it seems like for 7 years. But the park actually has come a long way, and I kudos to Mayor Hall and the city council for what they've done. There's a few more items there that need to be filled in, some infrastructure things. But I think once you put those in place, you get pavilions there, you get your restrooms, then you can start promoting the park. You can start having events there. I think it's there. It's just a matter of time.
Go ahead.
Okay, and you can go and.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it, everybody has their own idea about what the park should look like and what it should be, what it should feel like. Peggy was just talking about. But I just see so much promise for that park, and I'm hoping committee-wise we can get things really started this year. But I can see, and have seen for several years now, an amphitheater that would bring in such great entertainment, arts festivals. We have to have the infrastructure for those things. We can't just say, okay, we're going to have an arts festival at Harrison Park. It doesn't happen that way. But in the barn itself, there's a barn there that's been there for probably over 100 years, and we have to save that barn. We do have money set aside this year. We budgeted approximately $35,000. Some of that will be used for restrooms, of course, but
I have to agree with Al, restrooms, pavilions, fix the walk path so that you can walking on gravel. I worked a mail route 30 years in Gilbert County, drove a lot of dirt roads and walked a lot of them, up to houses, up driveways. It's rough when you're young, and when you get to be our age, it's trying to walk on gravel. That needs to be addressed. I think cleaning up the riverbank so we have access to see the river, like Jerry Davis is talking about, will be a great asset to us, where that river can be pulled into the park.
can I rebut my rebuttal?
Sorry. Mr. David, this question is yours. What is the best way to combat blight within the city?
Well, the best way is for, the code ordinance to be enforced. There's a lot of places in the city. Some of the places are very close to us right now. The residential areas, also the commercial areas. But one of the main problems we have is people living in substandard housing. Not only in single-family residence, but the apartments here close to us. It's almost like you'd see in a Detroit or somewhere. It's embarrassing. in a lot of ways. So code ordinance enforcement, I think, probably needs to be increased, should be increased. That would be my answer to that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chow.
I agree that code enforcement needs to be increased. I would ask the question, why hasn't it been done? And those things haven't changed. We still have the same code enforcement, and if we don't elect new thinking and new people into our council, it won't be done. I think that is important. I agree with David on this, but my question would be, why hasn't it been done? The other thing I think that we need to approach as the future council is to address our absentee owners. I think we have a lot of buildings downtown. I lived in one of the rental houses down in this community and had basically a slumlord that I rented from that could never get him to cooperate with any of the things that needed to be done in the building, and consequently, well, you may have seen the deck fall off of one of the houses downtown in the last couple of months. That was where I lived.
I agree too that the code enforcement should be, but it should be across the board to everybody equally. And I don't see that happening.
You know, the DDA has addressed the problem to some extent. It has managed to identify the blight areas on a map. I mean, anybody can come in to the DDA and see the map. Now it's just a matter, as everyone here all agree, I think, or at least those who expressed it, we've got to address it. We've got to go through with the code enforcement and see what we can do, not just to punish, but to help. And some people can't do things, and we need to get the grants, and we need to be able to help them.
Ms. Lynette, this question is yours. All right. And this is a question that faces a lot of communities, not just here in Ellijay, but across Northeast Georgia. With tourism increasing in Ellijay, how do we make our tourists happy without causing local residents and business owners discomfort?
Well, I live on River Street. So I know ahead of time on Apple Festival weekends not to try to go out my driveway because I'm not going to be able to. I think because I love Ellijay, and I'm assuming that the people that live in Ellijay do as well, we have to keep in mind that there are going to be some times when the tourists are here that it might be a little bit inconvenient for us. I know when I go to the grocery store that I need to go on Thursday of Apple Festival weekends and go back routes. You know, we all know the little shortcut routes to get different places around town. But I just think as long as we are a tourist area, the residents need to make concessions because that's our livelihood around here. So we need to do what we can to bring those tourists in and keep them happy.
I think one thing too would be let the people know how much sales tax is generated from those 2 weekends. That sales tax keeps your property tax low.
Ms. Katie? You sat there so quiet.
You gave me that infrastructure question. I'm a bummer.
Well, maybe this one is a little more lighthearted. What is the best way to encourage business owners throughout the city to improve the exterior appearances of the buildings?
Well, I guess probably peer pressure because everyone's already done such a good job, one building at a time. I think the mayor at the hospital, we call it making rounds. The mayor and the city council as well. I know that several of us like to make rounds on the businesses downtown and see how are things going. Do you need any help with anything? I do agree with Scott that the absentee landlords they're a problem. And out of sight, out of mind with a lot of those folks. So they probably require a more official rounding by the code enforcement officer on anything in that area.
Mr. Scott? What do you think is the proper balance between additional alcohol permits and public safety, along with the family atmosphere concerns for your downtown area?
I don't view alcohol sales as not compatible with family issues at all. I think that they are. I think that we'll see more families participating and coming to restaurants and businesses in town if we did expand our alcohol sales in the community. And I think that our law enforcement would back this up. I don't think that we've seen any kind of spike or a New Orleans type of atmosphere in our community because of our alcohol sales that we already have. I'd like to expand the zone that we have alcohol sales in that will increase our businesses coming to our community, the restaurants that are here, and I think that it's not at any kind of odds with family values and what's going on here. I think that's the future of our community. One of the ways that we can add value and bring in new businesses here.
I totally agree with Scott on that as well. When you stand in the roundabout and face north and look down to the right to River Street at 6 or 7 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday night, there are people out and walking around and, enjoying themselves. If you look dead ahead, there's nothing. There's a reason for that. And I don't think that's any secret, my opinion on it as well, but I do feel that that's an important part of economic development for downtown.
Ms. Lynette?
Yes.
This question is for you. What do you see as the role for the office you are running for?
I see my role as a city council member as one of communicating what the citizens of Ellijay want. One of the things that I've done over the last week is to send out emails and Facebook messages to get input from the people that live here. So that I can't do anything just on my own ideas. I need ideas from everybody because my ideas may not be what everybody else wants. So I need to be able to communicate with the people and share those ideas with other city council members.
Anybody else want to stab at that question before we move on?
Yeah, I think it's very important that all the city council members understand the issues at hand and make sure that they investigate it thoroughly and what are the impacts or good side and the bad side and make a good judgment call on that and work with the other departments with public safety, with the Downtown Development Authority. For it all to work, everybody's got to work together. And I would definitely see it that way.
I think we need, as council members, we need to know what's going on in Ellijay. And that may be a busybody kind of thing, but I think it's important we know that. As a merchant downtown, I wander around all the time. And I can tell you when TJ's is getting some new stuff, or when Charlie and Francis go to England to bring back new things, and when they're arriving, people come into the shop and say, "Do you know where I can get a flamingo?" This was a couple of days ago. I said, "As a matter of fact, I do. Go on down to 28 Main. They've got this great flamingo." But that's no different than what we need to do on a larger scale.
I'll have to respond. I had a pretty good background in growing up with a father who was very visible. He was in town every day, different businesses he went to. And that's what I feel like part of the job is to be visible, be available all the time to the businesses and the merchants. Not the citizens also, and getting around. You can just about count on seeing a blue Chevrolet 12, 15 hours a day riding the streets around and checking on things. And I think that's part of our job.
One of the things that you have to realize, in the last 8 to 10 years, we've lost 700, 800 manufacturing jobs that have been a core part of this community. And they were not been replaced. Hopefully, the Joint Development Authority can start to do that. But we are a tourist town, and that's where the bread and butter will be. Not just Ellijay, we're a tourist county. And we talked to the mayor, it would help if we could get the chicken trucks off of some of the city streets while people are eating their sandwiches. But some people don't like to hear that. But if you're going to be a tourist town, you can't have that. You got to know what you are, and you can't have that.
Well, David, then I'm gonna throw the next question out to you. You just said that you can't have chicken trucks downtown if you're a tourist town. How do you balance your economic development of being a tourist town with the industrial base that you said that you've recently lost, so that you can make sure that there are enough jobs in your community to sustain its future growth?
Well, going back to the tourism, the tourism, we've already got that base here. We're already known as a tourist destination, and we're becoming more and more well known. As far as the industrial jobs, the downturn in the economy is what hit those jobs. Whether they'll come back anytime soon, we don't really know. But we do have a potential here because the workforce here has always been diversified as far as manufacturing goes. Not just in the broiler fabrication at the chicken plant, but we had textiles, 2 or 3 different types of textiles. And we can get that back, but it's going to take an effort. And I think that Joint Development Authority, where we partnered with East Ellijay and Gilmer County, that will really help us, and that will bring us some jobs for the young people to have so they don't have to leave.
I think that if we're still focused on manufacturing as a future of this county and community, I think we're lost. That's never coming back here. We have to embrace the fact that we are a tourist town. And the only way to really do that better, and that's what we need to do, is through educating our children in hospitality and tourism. And we need to start that in the school system here so we can retain our youth and keep our young people here in the community. That's the future of this town. It's not manufacturing. We're never going to bring that back. We just don't have the right place to do that.
Well, I'd have to disagree simply because we've got the corridor of the highway, which, you've already got utilities. You've got a water and sewer authority that's pretty well ahead of the curve now. So, you don't want to pass something up that's there. Like I said, we are a tourist destination, and we need to develop that first, but we don't give up on the other.
I'm not suggesting that we give up on anything. I'm just saying the soft industries that can come here need to lend themselves to the tourism that we have. For example, manufacturers that manufacture outdoor recreation equipment, bicycles, canoes, kayaks, outdoor equipment. We need to bring that type of soft manufacturing here that's going to have low impact on our community, but add to the tourism that we projecting as our future here.
Agreed.
Yes.
Maybe out of line, it may rub some people the wrong way, but I was asked to be on the board of directors, Chamber of Commerce. And in my opening remarks that day, I told them something I had been doing for about 6 months. And that was writing an individual letter to all the manufacturers I could find north of Virginia that were in the weapons business and ammunition business. That's a skilled job. We have skill right down the road at Chattahoochee Tech to train these people. We've got a college here in town, or is that part of the business end of it? inviting them to look at Gilmer County and Ellijay. And since Blue Ridge Carpet, which David spent his life at, is gone, that's a perfect place for small, mini businesses. One response I got was from Charter Arms, Massachusetts. They could not consider it because they had just moved into a new facility, and 60 of their suppliers were in a 50-mile radius. And that's what they look for. But he said, I would look, he came on the Chamber of Commerce website and looked at it. He said, you got a great place to look at.
Miss Patricia. She was hesitant there. What do you think is the greatest challenge currently facing Ellijay?
I think we need a concrete vision where Ellijay is going, or where we want Ellijay to go. 20 years down the pike. We need to figure out what we want the town to be as much as we can, and where we want people to live as much as we can, and to start toward making those changes. I mean, we've talked about the alcohol question. Where do you want those places to be? We need to, if we're going to expand, we have to create an area of expansion. And we can't just do it willy-nilly. I think we need to have some focus as to what we want. Do we want to develop the river? How? If we do, then we need to think about how to connect downtown to the river. Do we want a train and be a little more like Blue Ridge? I don't know. But those are the kinds of questions that I think regularly the council should open up to the citizens and say, what do you think? And let's listen and let's make a decision as to how is our town going to grow. And we need to get the chicken trucks off. I was behind one today, and the heathers were coming out, and the bird poop, and I just thought, oh, if you're eating lunch somewhere, no way.
Sometimes you're dealt with what you have, or you have to deal with what you have. I know I was in Savannah this summer on river. I think it's Bay Street, and that's the main street that goes through Savannah, Georgia. And we all know what kind of a tourist town that Savannah is. And I was sitting there on a bench, and within a 20-minute period, I counted 22 18-wheel trucks, these huge trucks coming right down Main Street. But it didn't, they've learned to work with it. They've learned to get around it. They've dealt with it. And I think sometimes we're just going to have to use our own ingenuity, and some things you can change, and some things you can't change. Sometimes.
One of our town's leading merchants is a poultry farmer also, and every time he sees a feather fly, it's a dollar bill. And that's jobs, that's taxes that keeps it in proportion. We're not going to do away with the poultry plant because too many jobs, but I do agree there's some way to work around this, as far as traveling of the trucks. They can't hit 4-lane now, Dodge downtown, but they should be an answer. But it's not going to go away. We just have to work a solution out.
Yes, sir, Mr. Ellijay.
Well, there are other ways. Gangs, for instance, they're required to cover their trucks.
Yeah.
And that helps with the odor plus the flying of the feathers. And I mean, that's at least that.
That's true.
Speaking of chickens, living on River Street, When I come out of my house at night, especially if it's really foggy, it stinks. And I don't know what the problem is, but that's one thing I want to try to find a solution for, is to make Ellijay smell better at night.
Oh, to Ellijay.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Adams, this question is for you,
Okay.
okay? Looking back over the last 4 years, what would you have done, or what would you have liked to have seen done differently?
When you said 4 years, I thought 30 years. I came, when I started on the city council, and I'm not trying to divert from your question too much, but when I first was elected to the city council, we had no city hall, we had no fire department, we had no police department. We had a police car, but we had no police department. And everything was a dream. It was something that we would sit and say, I wish where can we put a brand new city hall? Where can we put a brand new police department? And this dream went on probably longer than it should have, but we did plan for it, and we just set aside property, we did this and that. But in fact, it came to pass. But in the last 4 years, which to me is a short time, at my age, 4 years goes real fast. But I wish that we could have done more with the park quicker, because I see so much potential there. And I've been trying to say that I don't think the barn's going to go away. I don't think it's going to rot down. But I get real antsy about things like that, and I want to preserve that part of history. I like to see the downtown develop a lot faster than it has. I think the boardwalk was one of the best things we could have done. And this was Larry's idea. I won't take credit for that, but I felt like that would just add flavor to downtown Ellijay.
All right, Mr. Larry, he's giving you kudos. You get the next question. Would you support better utilization and expansion of Harrison Park and how?
Absolutely. Get restrooms put in there as soon as we could. Get a pavilion in there, a large enough pavilion to have concerts in. And start advertising it and start offering it as a place for events, family reunions, maybe make a little income off from it. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
As a citizen, I've been disappointed at the speed with which that property has been developed. There's very little done down there. As the treasurer of a nonprofit organization, Kusquati Watershed Alliance, I've had over $5,000 sitting in the bank for about 7 years, waiting for the opportunity to invest that in Harrison Park itself. It's been unfortunate that we can't get any consensus on what the future of that park is, and I think we need to see that develop. It's been 7 years. What has the council done to see that that's getting done? Just too slow or non-existent, development done. I think it needs to be done now, and the sooner the better. That's going to help us develop our downtown. It's a key point.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree, it does seem to be moving slowly, but when you are the steward of taxpayer dollars and 45% of our budget comes from sales tax, and when you have a recession, near depression that we had in 2008, we really haven't had the funds that we would have liked to have had to spend on the park. And I feel that we are moving in the right direction. It's probably not at the speed that everyone would like, but it's the speed that we could afford.
All right, Mr. Roy, this question is for you. Would you support allocation of extra funds to support the efforts of the Downtown Development Authority on projects similar to that of the boardwalk?
Certainly. Certainly, I don't have any ideas right off, but I think the boardwalk's a good project. I think it needs to be lighted now, maybe a sound system put in to help some of the little bit of music venue that we have there. But overall, I think that's a good project, and I think anything else that could be tied to the park in that way also would be good idea.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we also need to, and I was also part of with Larry with the DDA and the development of that boardwalk, but we need to be able to do something to move it further, to bring it further down south, and to bring the merchants that presently are north of that boardwalk, to bring them further in, visually, economically, in every way. I'm not sure how to do that. I mean, thinking of, we've all thought of various kinds of ways. If we could move the boardwalk all the way up, that would be great. That's not going to work. So we need to think of alternatives, but we need to get that northern area down, pulled in.
Again, I reiterate what I just said about the boardwalk. I think it's a great thing. But some of the, one contention that I have is the roundabout itself is not really what I consider, especially a person even older than me, or more disabled than me. Myself, I can run across the crosswalks, and I do almost every night. When I'm out running, I just zip through. But they're not people friendly. Some of the crosswalks in town are not people friendly. And I think the city council is going to have to devote some of their efforts to at least see if there's something we can do in that regard.
Well, this last question is from all of you, okay? What we'd like is for you to tell everyone who's sitting here in this audience how it is that you have prepared for this illustrious service opportunity called councilman that is being presented before you. And we're going to start down with Mr. Roy.
Oh, I guess the best way is, had a father who was very proactive in civic affairs over his lifetime. I saw things he'd done, and a lot of things I disagreed with him on that we had over supper at nights. But in the long run, I saw that passion, and I guess I got a little of that. I made myself a promise along with Patty. When we moved back, I wanted to see a scout building built, because the original scout hut was where the primary school sits on the river. It was torn down, scouts were meeting all over this community. And it took 25 years of begging everybody to do that. And it finally happened in 2000 with the help of Ed Grant and a few more builders in this community. They started the Gilmer Building Association, and I worked for them, the church, and the community to get that going. And I feel like, that training that I got growing up doing that was helpful. I also sat on the chair of the building program at the Methodist Church. I learned a lot from that experience. I've been involved with the Lions Club, I'm a life member. I'm not active in scouting anymore, but I am a business owner. I'm a retired federal employee. And all of that, I think, has contributed to it. I learned at the age of 17 how Congress works as a page on the House of Representatives floor. I also learned later on as an intern for Congressman Landrum, who this highway over here wouldn't be here without him. So I think the civic involvement is very important for anybody that's in an elected position, because that way you're exposed to more ideas, not just people in your city, but in your community. And I guess that's how I look at it. It's not just a job, it's a passion for civil service. And I've been a civil servant more or less all my own through DOT, Georgia Department of Transportation, the Post Office Department, and these civic organizations I've been involved with. And now I've had the honor of being asked to be on the Board of Directors of Chamber of Commerce. I'm a charter member, and I've never been asked to serve. And I hope my input will have a positive effect on that organization.
Ms. Patricia?
I've spent most of my adult life in some area of the law. I am a lawyer. I do not practice. You again one day. I do not
Call
practice
yourself
in
attorney. Call yourself
Georgia,
attorney.
however. I fell in love with order. My stepfather was a judge in Florida, but I loved the sense of order and administration that came with the judicial system. And I was appointed I was the youngest person ever appointed as United States Magistrate Judge in the United States. I was the first female ever to have a baby while serving on the bench. And I served as a federal magistrate judge for 10 years, and then we moved to Montana, and I served there as a municipal judge and court of record judge. And I practiced law, and then one time passed very quickly, as Al points out. But while I was doing all of these things, I learned an awful lot about listening. As a judge, you have to listen very carefully. You have to have your antennae up, and you have to take each situation independently, on its own, merits or lack of merit. And I learned those things. In many ways, they came instinctively, but I learned them. And I got to a point where I decided enough was enough. And I came to visit a friend in Ellijay, and I fell in love. And I love Ellijay. I'm going to remain here. When I heard that the pottery was closing and wasn't going to be there anymore for the citizens, I said, this can't happen. So I bought the pottery. Never been in pottery in my life, but I bought the pottery, and I've learned a lot there. I've learned about people, young ones, old ones, medium, it doesn't matter. And I hope to bring that, if I am elected, to the council.
I've prepared for this in several ways. Certainly through my service to the nonprofits and different things that are going on in this community. When I moved here 15 years ago, I served on the POA. From there, I served on several of the advisory committees, one for this organization in Gilmer Arts, one for the county commissioners. I was one of the founding members of the Kusawati Watershed Alliance, which is a water protection organization and advocacy organization in this community. And then I've just rolled off as vice president of this organization again, the Gilmer Arts Association. Finally, probably the best thing that's prepared me for this is that I've retired, and now I'm what I consider a professional volunteer, and I can devote my full time to this. And I have nothing else, no business, no job that will interfere with what it is that I'll be able to do to contribute to this community. I'd like to ask for your votes.
But he does like to go fishing.
I have two passions. One of them is fishing, and the other one is Scotch whiskey.
Well, I've been on the council for 17 years, and for some people, I know it's like, God, she's been on the council 17 years. But when I think about it, I'm like, God, I've only been on 17 years. It just doesn't seem like that much. And prior to being on the council, I too was president of GAHA, president of every PTA my kids ever went in, founder of the Best Series. I was on the planning commission before I was elected my first time around. So I would say what is preparing me for the next 4 years is the School of Hard Knocks of being elected for 17 years, because we've made some big mistakes that we've learned from and developed the institutional knowledge that's important to have when you're going into the future so that you don't make a lot of the mistakes that you've made in the past.
Mr. David.
Well, I've served on the city council as either council or mayor since 1982, I believe. Except for 4 years, I was on the water and sewer, Gilmer County Water and Sewer Authority. Served 4 years on the governor's water council, which is a statewide appointment. And I've got some experience at least in the government. But one thing that you have, the biggest part of the job, toughest part of the job is trying to figure out as a mayor and a council what you can afford to do, because Katie referenced this earlier. You know, our sales tax revenues have been dragging for several years now, and that is impacted on what we can do and what we can spend. So available funds, the only thing we can actually put a number on ourselves is what we charge the property owners, not just the homeowners, but the property owners. And so you have to be real careful as you want to try to do as much as you possibly can, try to develop more revenues, certainly. But you have to stay within the framework of what your constituents will stand. And I think we've done a good job of that.
Ms. Lynette?
I think my whole life pretty well has prepared me for this, because I spent all my life as an educator, and I can work with 4-year-olds or I can work with grandparents. I was an assistant principal the last 9 years I was in public school, and I learned to listen to various sides of things when children would come to the office, and then I would use my best judgment to make a ruling or make a decision on how things needed to be handled. I was a single parent for 9 years, so I really know how to budget. In fact, my husband, I think he calls me tight or stingy or some kind of words, I'm not sure, but I can make a dollar stretch a long way, and I think that's really important in the city council to get the best bang for your buck. I have not done a lot of civic things. I currently serve on I'm on the board of trustees for the Gilmer County Library, and I'm very involved in many activities at the First Methodist Church. I'm a Stephen minister, and as a Stephen minister, we are trained to listen to people and listen to the problems and be there for them when they're having difficult times. I love Ellijay. I came back 4 years ago, and I think the work that we did on our house on River Street made a big difference on beautifying that part of the town anyway. So I'm proud of that. That's where I grew up. That was my home. I lived there until I moved to Dalton. Well, after I got a divorce, but I lived there for many years growing up. And Ellijay's just, it's my home, and I want to see what I can do to make it better. Thank you.
Mr. Ray?
Well, I think my preparedness started about 10 years ago, and I didn't know how to say no. And I got into business and became 2-term president of the downtown Ellijay Merchants Association. 3 years on the Gilmer County Chamber of Commerce, on the Downtown Development Authority. Tried to work close with the city, those things, and I have somewhat of an idea of what goes on there. And I just want to get in a better position where I can help make some things happen. I think this town would be proud of and needs to carry on with its development.
And last but certainly not least.
Okay,
Mr. Al.
thank you, and thank you for what you did tonight. I teach third graders, and I know they need math. So that's a lot right there. My son is a technological genius almost, and he's taught me everything he can at my age. And so I really do try to, and I try to, in the school system, you have to be professional. Some of you know that. And you have to treat people in a professional manner. But the biggest thing is I just love Ellijay. I know some of you have heard this story, and you're tired of hearing it, but I was born next to the barber shop. David and I played ball here on this street. We ran from the police on this street. My mom, and Roy, and my mom grew up in this Baptist church. She was even church there for dancing on Saturday night. She's 91. She lives right over here, so if you get too loud, she'll hear you. But the biggest thing is my love for her.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you sit 8 individuals who have told you this evening why it is that they're seeking your vote on November 3rd, it is now your job to go to the polls and find those that will best suit the needs of your community.